Hello and welcome to the Radical Podcast, inspired by the essence of the word radical, proceeding from the root. We explore the roots of metaphysical wisdom.
This season is all about divination, tarot, and the power held within our intuition. This is The Radical with Nicole and Christina, the two metaphysical girls in the material world. Hello and welcome to The Radical. I'm Nicole.
And this is Christina.
Today's episode is the Wheel of Fortune, our last tarot card. That's part of Sagittarius season before Capricorn next week.
Moving into the actual winter. The winter season in quotation marks. Do you know what I mean? Because depending on where you live in the country, where you live on the planet, you might be like, this is winter. But winter doesn't start until after the winter solstice, technically.
Christina has her list. And then at the end of the episode, the messages from the universe are coming to us from the visionary I Ching. Haven't used that one in a while.
I'm going to go get started on this list. Some tarot cards have so much more historical stuff behind them than others. Some are very clear cut and don't have as much symbology and so much iconography but Wheel of Fortune, out of probably most of the major and minor arcana, is full of symbols and history. Just starting with the name of the card. It's called the Wheel of Fortune, the Wheel, Fate, Destiny. Going further back in history, when we're going to talk more about the deity associated with this card, or could be associated with this card, could be called Lady Fortune, because there was a Lady Fortune in mythology that was spinning the Wheel of Fortune. And then sometimes it's just called fortune. And the Latin phrase, rota fortunea. The card number, 10. The Roman numeral, X. I do have one card that has this as a different number. And you listeners might have some decks that have them aligned differently. And that is all open for the author's interpretation. The element is fire. This is a yes card. If you're asking a yes or no question and you get the Wheel of Fortune, it's a yes. The Zodiac sign is associated with Jupiter's Sagittarius because this card is Jupiter. This card has a planet as its patron. Is that the right word? Patron? As its leader. And Jupiter, in the world of Jupiter, is all about fulfillment, opportunities, promises, expansion, optimism, abundance, good fortune, and wisdom. It's the planet of luck. It also rules religion and ideology and research and exploration. The house for Wheel of Fortune is the 9th house, which is Jupiter's house, which is Sagittarius, and that's the house of purpose and direction. Mantra can be I see. But also, Jupiter ruled the 12th house, classically, before we discovered Neptune and assigned Neptune to the 12th house. This is a water house, Pisces, house of sacrifice and self-undoing. But the mantra of this house can be I believe. I can't wait to get into this house and talk about it because this is the conclusion of the Zodiac wheel, that 12th house. Crystals, I found some different information on crystals. A lot of people like clear and white crystals for Wheel of Fortune. I got some information on white topaz. I got a lot of selenite coming up for the Wheel of Fortune. Selenite being divine light and purifies energy and brings clarity. But I personally like malachite for Wheel of Fortune. If you look up the spiritual meaning of malachite, it's transformation, protection, growth. This can be called the growth of transformation. To me, this is also a stone of cycles. You look at a malachite stone, and depending on, each stone is completely unique, but often it has this banding and this patterns. You might have some that have actual circles and ripples in them. To me, that feels very Wheel of Fortune. This stone is also strongly connected to the heart chakra, promoting love, compassion, and balance. But it could also be with the solar plexus. But we're going to talk about chakras in a minute. But if you have some different thoughts on Wheel of Fortune crystals, send us an email and tell us what you think. Correspondences, the Hebrew letter for Wheel of Fortune is Kaf, and that represents, in this topic, the palms of the hands, or cup. The meaning is destiny. In the Tree of Life, this is the 11th pathway between Chesed and the more we're climbing the Tree of Life. I almost said digging into the Tree of Life, but we're actually climbing the Tree of Life. We're climbing out all the branches and the limbs and learning so much about it. I had a couple different definitions, or a couple different interpretations of Chesed as loving kindness and mercy. Then the latest one I saw has it as love and law. So the 11th pathway for the Wheel of Fortune between Chesed and Netzach. Triumph and endurance, but also forces of nature.
Makes sense.
So in this article that I read about these two, that author had Chesed as love and law, and Netzach as forces of nature. This is on the left pillar, as you're looking at the Tree of Life, the right-handed pillar, the middle and bottom two spheres. Those are the two spheres we're talking about. Okay, for the chakra for the Wheel of Fortune, I like the heart chakra for a couple different reasons. But the one that stuck out to me the most was Anahata, meaning unstruck, meaning your heart vibration has always been and always will be. That is the Wheel of Fortune. That is the Wheel of Life. That is the Wheel of Nature, the Wheel of Destiny. That is like the heart chakra. It is unstruck. It's always been spinning. It's always been vibrating. Also, the heart chakra is where we store, in quotation marks, where we store our balanced energy to be used to manifest. Often in my Kundalini classes, we talk about bringing energy up from the lower triangle. The lower triangle chakras, the root, the solar plexus, and the sacral. And then sometimes we're so in our heads that we're bringing energy down from the upper triangle, our crown and third eye and throat. And where do we keep that balanced energy? In the heart chakra. So for Wheel of Fortune, when everything is coming together, that kind of feels like a good chakra to be working with when you're working with this energy. Symbols on this card. So many. On the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, they have a Sphinx, and some of the older decks had other Sphinx and other representations of wisdom and balance. There's also a representation of, as the wheel turns, there's often something representing energy going down and energy going up. We have the snake descending, and ascending is Anubis. Anubis. Anubis is the Egyptian god of mummification in the afterlife, and the dead, that is the jackal-headed god. So that is what that red character is on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. But it essentially represents energy going down and energy going up. Different authors have very different symbols for that, but that just shows that the wheel is spinning. There is such a and it just, all the symbols around it, and the theme of it is impermanence, of flow, of change. That's what those, the snake and the Anubis, mean, is impermanence. The inner symbols on the wheel, there's an Aquarius symbol. They say that's for the age of Aquarius. Yes. What is the age of Aquarius? Roughly every 2,150 years, the sun's position at the time of the vernal equinox will have moved into a new zodiac constellation. That 2,150 years is dividing the Earth's gyroscopic precession by 12. And that is 25,800 years. That takes into account the Earth's wobble, the precession of the equinoxes. You remember we talked about when a top spins, it also wobbles. That's why we have this change of where the sun is. I knew it was a large gap of time. I knew that the age of Aquarius was something that was, its popularity took into popular culture in the 60s and the 70s. But as an astrological concept, it's been around. I mean, you could find so many fantastic articles on this, listeners, if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But in astrological ages, they will proceed in the opposite direction. The age of Aquarius follows the age of Pisces. Now, where are we currently? You may be wondering, are we in the age of Aquarius? We might be. Astrologers have different dates and different points of view and different research on this, but it could have started anywhere as early as 1447, and it may be due all the way to 3597. That's a huge gap. That's a lot of time. But we could also be in it right now. It could have been 10 years ago, could have been 25 years ago. It's a fascinating topic, listeners. Go look it up. Wikipedia has a fantastic page on it. They get into the science of it, and then they talk about different astrologers' points of view. But the age of Aquarius, I think we're in it.
We talked about it during our Aquarius podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did research, I read that some astrologers said it started in 2012. Mm-hmm. Some said 2021 because there was a stellium in Aquarius. And there were, I think, 6 celestial bodies, all in Aquarius, all lined up. And then some astrologers have said 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Now-ish. Now
we also have to take into account sidereal versus tropical, which is whether the stars are fixed or the Earth is fixed. And that's why there's also a large gap in when astrologers think this is started and when it's going to end. But it is a fascinating subject. But that is why on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, that Aquarius sign is there. Could be for the age of Aquarius. The other 3 symbols on that inner part is a symbol for Mercury. And then we have sulfur and salt. These are the ingredients to make the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone is believed, first of all, to turn base metals into gold. It's believed to have the power of transmutation, to create an elixir of life for immortality. It symbolizes perfection, spiritual purification, and also ultimate knowledge. This Philosopher's Stone. And whether or not it's a physical stone or whatever kind of element or process it is, but the fact is, though it has never existed or proven to exist, the quest for it has advanced chemistry especially early chemistry, and these alchemists doing these experiments and learning about these elements. And the quest for the Philosopher's Stone was called the magnum opus. And it's been talked about since, the ancient times to the present times. But will it be proven one day? Will we figure out how to do this elemental procedure? Maybe. But that's what those symbols are on that card. So we can think about what the Philosopher's Stone actually symbolizes in a metaphysical sense, not a physical sense, is how I like to look at that. There's a lot of fours. So that although this is a circle, there's lots of fours. There's four beings, there's four clouds, the letters can be broken down into different sets of four. And they could be the four winds, the four stages of life, the four elements. On this particular, on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the four creatures, the four yellow creatures on that card, are the four fixed zodiac signs to represent the elements. And we remember the fixed signs are the signs that are in the middle of the season. Leo is the middle of summer. That's fixed fire. That's the lion. Earth is the middle of spring. That's Taurus. That's the cow. Air is the middle of winter. Aquarius. It's represented as an angel here, but the air Aquarius is actually prana, which is the flow that's coming out of that cup of life. It could actually be the elixir of life, prana. And then water is Scorpio, the middle of fall, and that is often represented by an eagle. That's that specifically. But when we get into our card comparisons, I have an author that uses four completely different figures to represent that. And as we go through the other cards, maybe we'll see more of that thematically. I don't remember where I'm going to talk about this. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. It just came to me so clearly as I was looking at this. And I'm like, I think that's what this card, to me, this card is a lot of that bazaar, that concept of it's a combination of multiple elements that give us our present day experience. I see a lot of that in this card. But I cannot not mention the Roman goddess of fortune and luck, Fortuna. The older cards had a lot of imagery of a woman spinning the wheel and the lady luck, lady fortune. She's the daughter of Jupiter in mythology, which makes sense. And as a deity herself, her symbols are the globe, the wheel, a wreath, and a cornucopia. Lady Luck is what she would be called. Lady Fortune. The Greek counterpart is Tyche. Tyche. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
The number 10 for this card is confirmation and affirmation from the universe that the choices you are making are in alignment with the divine flow. And I love that Christina brought up the 1/3, that concept that we are obsessed with. But it makes sense to me that this card represents one component that defines our experience, and being in that state of divine flow is one of the thirds that I think about.
Mm-hmm.
The number 10 also conveys that the energies of fate and luck amplify the wave you are riding. And it again reminds me of when we talked about Chinese metaphysics and the elementals specifically. If you are in alignment because you are balancing your elemental needs, then fate and luck are going to propel you and push you even further. So it all works together.
Mm-hmm.
I have a note here, and this quote comes from my Tarot Fundamentals book. It says, "The Wheel of Fortune symbol is older than any tarot deck. It is found in medieval manuscripts and upon the walls of ancient European churches. The allegory of the revolving wheel of fate reflects how power is ephemeral. All things in the world are transitory." But I think generally with this card, when I was doing my research, this card more so conveys the energy of like a lucky upswing. I think it's good to acknowledge the cyclical nature as part of this card, but I think generally when you get this in a reading, it's that positive, benefic upswing of the wheel.
Yeah. I do see it that way too. I don't see this card as like, oh, I'm going to have some really bad luck. I don't see this card that way. I always see it as I'm going to have some really good luck.
Exactly. The quote goes on to say, "The Wheel of Fortune allows me to change my luck, influence my future, and alter my fortune." So it's doing the things you need to do to be in that divine flow and amplifying the energies of fate and luck. I also cannot help but think of not just the thirds with Chinese metaphysics, but I also think about the astrological essential dignities as 4 points on the Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, okay.
It's interesting for me to think about the astrological dignities on a wheel and how that conveys the energy of the dignity. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does. The Rider-Waite Smith deck gives us the direction that the wheel is spinning based on the snake and the Anubis character. So it's spinning
Counterclockwise?
well, which way does the clock go? Counterclockwise. And in my deck that has a wheel that spins, it is also flowing counterclockwise.
So I guess counterclockwise, we could think about it: exalted, domicile, fall, detriment. But I think the point...
Well, that is fascinating because energy going down could be detriment, right?
Yes.
Or fall. So you could overlay it kind of like, oh, that's so cool.
Okay. That was one of my brainstorms.
I like it. There's a lot of fours and like directional and like elemental and stages and things like that in this Wheel of Fortune cards. That's another layer.
In my Zodiac Tarot for the Wheel of Fortune, we don't have all that kind of classic imagery, those classic symbols. What this card does retain is the Anubis figure, and there's also a winged angelic figure with like a halo. The wheel, I would say, in this card is spinning counterclockwise. We also see on this card that the 4 Hebrew letters and then the letters that spell out tarot or Rhoda. What's the other word? Torah. Is another.
I was like the one from the High Priestess.
And the alchemical symbols are all missing. The wheel is emerging from the clouds, and behind the clouds with the green growth, we can then see how the wheel applies to ethereal matters as well as earthly matters. In my Medicine Woman Tarot, she renamed the Wheel of Fortune Harvest. And I think that by renaming it Harvest, this card conveys the energy of the continuous growing cycle in the Wheel of the Year, another wheel. And the guidebook for this card says, "Release any disappointment, instead learn." I think one of the underlying understandings that Chinese metaphysics does a really good job of just like laying it out there. You're not going to have a great time all the time. We can make a rough sea smoother by doing certain things to improve our luck, but sometimes like the elements are just going to clash and we're going to have resistance. And so the lesson in a tough period, when we're in a down swing or when we're at the bottom of the wheel and we're descending, is surrender, have faith, and trust what's happening. And if we just accept that disappointment and low points are just part of our experience, and soon enough, like our luck will change, we'll have an upswing. I think that's a good lesson with this card. Learn what you can and just keep moving. In my Antique Anatomy Tarot, there are 8 bony hands reaching out from the same wheel that's depicted in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. She uses the 4 suits that represent the 4 elements in the 4 corners of the card. And last but not least, Mystic Mondays. There's a wheel in the center of the card, and it's almost like there's rays of light that are like shining out from this wheel, and the wheel's divided into 12 divisions. Each ray of light is a different color. We have some varying shades of blue, purple, orange, and pink, and red. The art conveys a sense of constant change and reminding us to be adaptable and live kind of like within the season that we're in. So if we're uncomfortable in our downswing, it's knowing that we'll be at the top of the wheel again soon. And I love that she divided the wheel here into 12. It is a multiple of 4, but we have the 12 Zodiac seasons represented, in my opinion. So to me, it's kind of like this message of live fully within each Zodiac season or season of your life, absorb the lessons, do the work, and then move on to the next phase and just keep cycling through. So those were my cards.
For my card comparison, I'm starting with the Spirit Song Tarot. The author has that as card number 10. The Wheel. It's an octopus. The keywords are change and possibilities. The octopus, as a spirit animal for the wheel, fits in my head. The octopus is adaptable, has the ability to navigate complex situations with both their mind and their body. There's a lot of elements to the makeup of the 3 hearts, the brain plus the mini brains in each of the legs of the octopus that make it just a not a master of its environment, but a it's in its environment. It's very much in its environment, in the present moment, adapting and doing what it needs to do. For an octopus, there's also an element of regeneration and renewal because they can regrow back their arms if they've been damaged or if they're cut off. And since this is an animal that lives in the water, there's this element of intuition and getting in touch with your inner self. The author wrote in the guidebook, go with the flow and release past restrictions. The key to success is adaptability. When you tune into the rhythm of the universe, you'll be the master of your own destiny. Master of your destiny. Maybe not. We can't always be the master of our environment because the stimulus comes from outside sources. But the octopus as the master of your destiny, I could see that. For the Wild Unknown tarot deck, the author has this as card 10, Roman numeral X, called the Wheel of Fortune. Keywords are destiny and change of course. There's a waxing crescent moon in the upper right corner. There's an owl perched on a limb in the upper left corner. There's a starry sky. There's an eclipsed sun down at the bottom. The sun's rays shining out. The actual Wheel of Fortune in this scenario, to me, has a Dreamcatcher-esque type look to it, but it is not done in a very tidy or geometric way. The cording it has the rainbow colors on it, with the red towards the center, and then the rainbow patterns outward to like dark blue and indigo towards the outer edge. But the cording is just like looped and backtracked, and it is kind of like how life can be unordered yet still beautiful, and how we can't control all the elements of what comes and what goes in our environment. The cording is looped. The sticks are haphazard and going in very different directions. The card makes me feel a certain way. I'm sure as Nicole's looking at it, she feels a certain way. Listeners, if you take the time to look at it, it's going to make you feel a certain way. But as a representation of the Wheel of Fortune, I get it, but I also prefer other representations. This one doesn't make me think of what I like to think of when I think about what there's a lot of things when I think about what the Wheel of Fortune card means to me. But it's a beautiful card and it has a lot of symbology in it, a lot of symbols.
I can't get past the disorderliness.
Yeah. It looks claustrophobic to me. And it doesn't feel like there's flow in this card. It feels like things are just being piled on top of each other. For the Secrets of the Witch's Garden, the author has this as card 11, XI, the Wheel of Fortune. Keyword time. There's a wooden wheel in the center, and the water is coming across the top, and it's flowing down the side of it to cause the wheel to rotate in a counterclockwise rotation. So this is giving us a direction of flow as well on this card. But we also have a green snake going down the wheel on one side, and a red and brown fox going up the wheel on the other side as an echo to those two Raider White Smith characters of the snake and Anubis. The illustrator here has a snake and a fox. There's an owl for that wisdom and balance, like that Sphinx. And then we have a fairy, a child, a fawn or a satyr, and a sleeping cat. And that is this author's representation of the elements. The child can be earth, the fairy can be air, the sleeping black cat is water and intuition, and the fawn character is fire. Could also be earth, and then you could also switch them up in my head. That's how I saw it. But the author doesn't actually come out and say it, so it's open for interpretation. It's just saying that there's 4 characters to represent the 4 elements. The fawn in here is the half goat, half human mythological creature from Roman lore. It symbolizes fertility in the wild. It's like a Greek satyr. It's also known for guiding travelers, and they dwell in the forest. So that could also be an element of our wilder nature, or our not uncivilized, uncultured, uncivilized nature. There's a lotus in the middle of this wheel. The illustrator and the author has chosen to leave the 4 letters, rota or tarot, or what was it? We know those 2, and then we always forget the third. And then the symbols for water, earth, air, and fire on there as well. I like the lotus on here. Made me think of No Mud, No Lotus, or yes mud, yes lotus, as some authors like to write it, that made me think heavily of the mud being necessary, the water being necessary, and the flower being necessary. So that's the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. You can't have you can't have the flower without the mud. You can't have the mud without the stuff, without the decomposition. And then you can't have the decomposition without the blooming of the flower. It's all connected, and you need all of it to have that wheel, to have that lotus. It's a great card. Every time I look at it, I see things a little differently, or I kind of like I see more, or I connect more with one character versus the other with this card. But it's an echo of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck with more of a very natural, very magical spin to it. And then finally, for the Sacred She, this is card 10. It's a Roman numeral X, and they call this card Change. There's a sphere being held in 2 open palms, just like the Hebrew word for this, which is the cupped hands, open palms. The figure that's holding this sphere is in like flowy, wavy robes. To me, look like there's red and orange and yellow and purple. It looks like it's like all the elements depicted in the robes of the figure holding it. 2 open palms in the sphere. I'm saying it's a sphere because it looks like it's a sphere in the palm, like a crystal ball, like a heavy. It doesn't look like a disc to me, but it could be. But in the center, that to me looks like a representation of the Dharma chakra. That is a representation of Buddha's teachings to the path of enlightenment. And sometimes it has 8 spokes for the Noble Eightfold Path. I have an example down there that you may have seen, Nicole, or I know we've come across this in our hundreds of hours of yoga teacher trainings and various trainings. To me, it resembles that, but it is not an exact representation of that. It means this author and this illustrator's version of that wheel, of that turning. It has the 3 sections in the hub, it has the 8 spokes, and it has the rim, like the classical representation of the Dharma chakra. But if you're unfamiliar with that, listeners, go look it up. Again, fantastic articles. It's called The Wheel of Dharma, and chakra means wheel, Dharma chakra. And it's a symbol in dharmic religions like Buddhism. Like I said, it has to do with Buddha's teachings, the path to enlightenment, if you've ever heard of the Eightfold Path. It's also the universe's cycles. It can be used it's seen a lot as a chariot's wheel, with the spokes symbolizing the eightfold path. But I've also seen it looking like a mandala with 4, 8, 12, or 24 spokes for different elements of the dharmic religion's teachings. And I like that for that. The author writes in their guidebook, accepting change as the way existence constantly transforms itself helps to bring us into the fullness of now.
Nice.
That is one of the main themes of that Dharma chakra and that wheel of life. And it all is the power of now, of this moment, before it shifts into something else. Oh, I'm trying to think of that Yoda. He says, never your mind on where you are, what you are doing. You're always in the past or always in the future. That's what Yoda said to Luke Skywalker. You need to have your head on. Do you know what you remember that part when they're on Dagobah?
Mm-hmm.
And then
it's not
Star Wars.
To me, though.
Never your mind on where you are, what you are doing. So we hit it all. We've hit yoga. We've hit multiple religions, Greek and Roman mythology, and now Star Wars. So we're good. Listeners, we got it. We got it all in on this podcast.
So if you get this card in a reading, The Wheel of Fortune could be conveying the mysteries and harmonies of the universe, things like fate, luck, destiny, and karma. My guided tarot book says it this way: many of the forces influencing our lives are mysterious and invisible. So, whatever mysterious and invisible forces you believe in are the forces at play in this card. Cycles and patterns. And also, I loved how this was phrased: the continuity through change, the flow of time, changes and opportunities, expansion and good fortune, which we get from Jupiter's influence, surrender and adapting. And one of my guidebooks said this: do you believe that your destiny is inevitable, or do you believe that you create your future? And I think it's some of both, right? But then the next question: would one of these perspectives help you more than the other at this time? So if I believe both are true, which I do, I could consider which one would be the most helpful at this time. Would it be better for me to surrender? Would it be better for me to take some kind of action to balance my elementals? Or do I need to just completely take my hands off the wheel, pun intended, and let things play out? So if both are true, is one more true or more helpful? If we get this card in reverse, it could be signaling a delay or a setback. It could mean that a cycle has been disrupted. It could indicate the opposite of surrender. So clinging to something, trying to control something, or a time period of bad luck or disappointment during the downside of the cycle. And one of my books advised, if you get this card in reverse, to look at your astrological transits and see if you can get more information on this kind of downturn. And that, again, brought up Chinese metaphysics. I think we actually talked about that in our podcast, how you can look at the elements in your Chinese natal chart, in your 4 pillars, and figure out what you need to do to essentially like comfortably get through a given year. So this note goes on to say, check your transits, and it's this acceptance that some years will be better than others. And our natal chart gives us those clues, but then it's up to us to do what's necessary to balance our elementals and our experience, how to harmonize with what's happening as this wheel continues to spin.
To write the reversal, which is interesting on this one. In my Secrets of the Witch's Garden, they have a question to ask if you get this card in reverse, or if you feel resistant to this card, is what can I focus on to bring peace?
Well, that's like exactly perfect. That's like what I think Chinese metaphysics would say too. It's like, okay, if I know, for example, I know I'm coming up on like a Pluto square Pluto transit. That's going to be kind of rough, right? But if I know that ahead of time, what can I focus on to bring peace? All my self-care stuff. Not overscheduling myself, letting myself have time to process what's happening, setting aside time for journaling, right?
That makes sense. Or honestly, like the first part of the question, what can I focus on?
Yeah.
But sometimes you might feel like that wild unknown Wheel of Fortune, and it's just overlapping layers of stuff, and you just need to focus on one thing.
Yes. And it kind of goes back to that other question: do you believe your destiny is inevitable, or that you create your future, and which one should you focus on right now? Okay. So I have 2 cards from the Visionary I Ching. So you can select card A or B. Card A, gentle penetration, wind above, wind below. A subtle penetrating effect is like a soft wind blowing through reeds that are bending gracefully, demonstrating flexibility and endurance. This symbolizes a quiet, relaxed effectiveness in action. A gentle influence is at work, but just as the wind can be ceaseless in its efforts, small forces add up to produce lasting results. Gentle penetration bodes well for new relationships or enterprises. Just as a summer breeze slowly penetrates the woods to cool the forest, the ideas of gifted leaders slowly reach and sink into the minds and hearts of people. In personal relationships, a gentle beginning can lead to a long-lasting union. When using a force that is soft but persistent, careful aim is necessary, for only when a small force continually moves in the same direction will it have a cumulative effect. In human affairs, this kind of soft influence comes more through strength of character than by direct confrontation or active seduction. It's important to have and stick to clearly defined goals. Maintaining a strong vision and following a steady course of least resistance will bring good fortune. And the second card is conflict. Sky above, water below. Conflict often arises when a person who is convinced they are entitled to something meets with opposition. In such cases, the wise choice is to not push things to the bitter end, because knocking heads perpetuates ill will. Creative solutions that meet others halfway are more valuable and longer lasting than victories achieved through force. Conflicts in which one party is not sincere inevitably lead to subterfuge and distortions. In such situations, those of strong character keep a clear head, protect their integrity, and look out for their own interests, even while seeking compromise. It can help to find a fair-minded mediator who can settle these matters. In times of conflict and turmoil, new ventures and new initiatives should be avoided. Instead, examine the sincerity of your current beliefs and the beliefs of those around you. Seek advice or arbitration from an impartial and mature person. Consider everything carefully before making any major decisions, and consider the option of compromise. Clarify the roles and responsibilities of those with whom you live and work to reduce conflict in the future. Thank you, universe.
Thank you, universe.
I definitely heard some Wheel of Fortune related things.
Whenever I think about this card, I do see it as a positive card, but also whenever I get this card, it's like, clear your head, look up and look around and be present. That there's like an opportunity, or there's something right in front of you need to see, or you need to do, or is waiting for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how I see this card a lot of the times.
Well, next week we'll be back with our first Capricorn episode. Our first Capricorn tarot card. So until then, listeners, thank you, and we love you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. The Radical Podcast is created and produced by Nicole and Christina.
Music by Van Horton. His Instagram is Van Horton Music. Stay in touch with us at linktr.ee/theradicalpodnc.